Welcome to Art Talk Tuesday, episode 7. Piece that I have before me today is entitled Memento Mori. It's 12 and a half inches wide by 19 and a half inches high. You see it's matted and framed and ready to go. So the inspiration for this piece came from, actually, I was in San Francisco in a gallery with some friends. We were walking around looking at some pieces by Richard Diebenkorn, the artist, and there was a piece in his collection the docent was talking about, commenting on the skeleton in the corner as a memento mori, and I was like, wow, I haven't done anything with that concept, which is often very interesting. Memento mori is Latin for you must die, or remember you must die. It's a very common kind of thing, symbolism you see in Western classical art throughout the ages if you've seen it. Basically, it's usually some kind of skull or some kind of crossbones. Sometimes you see just a skull with a candle sticking out of it, that type of thing. It's basically a little reminder, symbolic reminder that we must die. All of us will die. Although, in my understanding, death is an illusion, but a very significant one. And so, as we talk about this piece, I saw that and I said, you know what? I haven't done anything around the whole idea or notion of death per se. So let me begin doing something around that. So I started sketching different ideas and researching the concept of memento mori in Western classical art, and then also just kind of some stuff on death in general and in different religious traditions. And the universe opened up a door, as it always does. Happens a lot for me. I start thinking about a concept or an idea, and then an opportunity comes for me to present that, whether it's through a work of art, whether it's through preaching a sermon, something I'm writing about. So something usually comes up in a couple of weeks. And something came up. There was a call for artists for work for a Burning Man that year. There was a Burning Man show, and the particular group was doing a tribute to the South American Day of the Dead, and they were going to do a pyramid and project images onto the side of this pyramid. So I said, oh, well, there it is. There's a way for me to kind of be able to come up with a concept, kind of press me a little bit to do something different. So I began sketching, and this is the image that I came up with for that show. I did get accepted into the show, and as far as I know, I didn't go to Burning Man, but as far as I know, my piece was one of the ones that was projected onto the wall at that time, or onto the pyramid. So that's how this piece came about. We want to jump into the piece. I want to talk to you a little bit about the actual medium that I use here. I haven't talked about this before. The medium is called scratchboard. Many of you who know my work know that I work in watercolor, scratchboard, and acrylic, pretty much in that order. Scratchboard is a white clay board. I black it over with India ink or some kind of dark ink, and then I literally take scratching tools and X-Acto knives. Sometimes I even use surgical blades and scratch the image back out. So everything you see is an individual scratch. So it's a drawing medium or a drawing technique, but it actually is drawing in reverse, because normally when you're drawing, you're on a whiteboard and you're making things dark to create the illusion of form. Using a scratchboard, you're on a blackboard and you're making things white to create the form. So it's kind of a reversal process. I really like it a lot. It's one of my favorite techniques. Very time consuming. So try not to work too large, but I have a couple pieces that are pretty big that took a long, long time. I don't remember how long this one took, but I'm gonna jump right in. So the whole idea, memento mori, remember you must die, the whole idea of death. So I'm going to start up here at the top. You see that I have a skull, the traditional memento mori symbol there with a skull. And here inside the forehead is the Japanese character for death. You can see I played a lot around with the texture here. Not only did I do some rendering of the skull, but also playing around with the texture. All of this is tinted with watercolor and some colored pencil. This particular area here, I put a lot of fixative on there to kind of make it really shiny. And then as I put the watercolor on there, it began to bead and make little beads. So it gives the skull more of a look of really having like dry blood on it, something like that that's really bloody. Then also, traditional memento mori here, we drop down to the bottom, grave, always a symbol of death or the dead. In this case, the tomb is open, which is also symbolic of the resurrection. When we look at the whole idea of Jesus, even right, the tomb was empty. They went and he wasn't there. The tomb was empty. So this whole idea of death as being symbolic of going into the world or going underground, and then also resurrection into new life. We die to this, but we also enter into another. So there's a death and a birth happening simultaneously, just as we enter here. So playing with that concept here. These two figures here, you see they're different. They're slightly different. They're the same, but they're slightly different. These represent the god Anubis. Anubis in the Greek, Anaptu in the Anpu, I'm sorry, in the Egyptian. The Egyptian god of death. Anubis was believed to be the what we would say the protector of burial grounds and tombs for the dead. Anubis was also the one who shepherded the dead souls across into the underworld. And as they arrived to the underworld, he would weigh them based upon the lightness of their spirit versus a feather. So this whole idea of as we leave the earth, we must leave in a lightened state. We must leave in a light state. We must leave all the negativity and the things that weigh us down behind us in order to ascend into this other plane, to go into this other place. We can't take anything with us at all, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And so we must really be born anew to go into this other realm. So playing around with that idea there with Anubis here. Also, this skeleton here, this is just a little bit of fun I'm having here. The skeleton being animated, being alive. We know the skeletons are also a symbol of death or the dead, but also want to play with this whole idea of the skeleton rising back up as we rise up, and death not truly being the end. And this whole idea with the symbol of the heart here, this is symbolic of the life review tradition. Most religious traditions have some type of life review kind of thing in there where you're being judged or the soul is being judged. Also, we talk about people who had near-death experience, NDEs. They often talk about their life flashing before their eyes. And you heard somebody say, oh, I thought I was going to die. My life flashed before my eyes. So I'm playing with that concept here by having this whole idea of love, because love never ends. Love is the one thing that will always survive death and survive anything else. So this whole idea of love here and this life review. In this case, the skeleton is remembering actually what killed him. And so what I'm doing here is playing around the idea of the succubus. You see this figure here is called a succubus. And ancient mythology, the succubus was believed to be a demon who would appear to men and try to tantalize them during their sleep, appear to them in their dreams, and entice them to have sex with her. And as they begin to have sex with her, they would be drained of their life force and die in the physical world. So the whole idea of this succubus, and here the skeleton's remembering this love relationship here and what took his life. So in this sense, it's very interesting. And I just kind of play around. I just wanted to make it a little bit light here for that one. That's all I was kind of doing. This piece is valued at $1,500. As I said before, it's ready to go anytime you want it. We also have prints available on my website, damonpowell.com. Prints, I believe, started around $40 and go up. So thank you for tuning in. See you next week.